Tonight we have the Fixmer-Oraiz incumbent, Johnson County Supervisor, District 4, correct? Because you're in a district
Correct.
system now, and,
Correct.
and so the state legislators have forced that with you and
They sure have.
some other counties. So again, V's running for reelection. We endorsed V 4 years ago, back in 2022, along with John Green back then too. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to get the floor to V for the next 5 or 6 minutes here. So the floor is yours, V.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you again, and thank you for everything that the Unity Coalition does. I think, especially in Iowa, that's incredibly important. As we know, with leadership, we definitely need to kind of be out front with our values, particularly in this administration. So my name is V. Fixmer-Oraiz. My pronouns are they, them. I am the only transgender county supervisor in the state of Iowa. And I have really focused a lot of my efforts on affordable housing and inclusive economic development as much as I can anyway, given the attacks from the state legislature and the federal government, particularly on the LGBTQ community. And so I have been very active in that realm, I guess you could say, not necessarily because I want to, but certainly I'm not going to go down without a fight, I guess. So in terms of affordable housing, I've focused a lot of my time and energy on our manufactured housing parks and our neighborhoods. And so I've engaged with my colleagues, with not only the owners of these parks that are out of state, but also with our nearby municipalities to try and find ways to basically hold these owners accountable. There is incredibly weak legislation, and despite the residents' efforts to strengthen those legislative efforts. So we've had to kind of align ourselves with the residents, of course, uplift their voices and continue to support their actions that are, exploiting the water quality issues, the lot rent exploitation, and those types of things that are just untenable, quite frankly, for some of our most vulnerable residents. And I come from community organizing and planning. I have a planning background, so I'm very familiar with these being the last bastions of really affordable housing. And so just trying to do everything that we can to maintain that affordability, to maintain those neighborhoods. And I've directly said to these owners' faces, a capitalist model does not work for our neighborhoods. If you want that, go for the luxury, apartments and such. But these residents are not. You're not going to be making money off of them. That's not the point. So I've spent a lot of time and energy on that. In terms of inclusive economic development, which is something that I have quite extensive background in, I've been a part of. Actually, we've had a series of chambers kind of go through some iterations of change, but I've been on the boards of those. And in 2022, my planning firm conducted an inclusive economic development plan for the county that was really focused on grounds, sort of boots on the ground, talking with, store owners, folks that, quite frankly, were immigrants and had the small, mom and pop shop type stores. And their information, their experiences weren't really being included in a lot of the spaces that I was having conversation in. So we asked them and did a lot of work in terms of what are the barriers that they're facing and some of the discrimination that they're facing and how can we alleviate that. And I'm really proud to say that based on that incredible effort, and it's also translated into 4 different languages and available not only on our county website, but it's been adopted by almost every municipality in the county. But during, I think it was 2024, Iowa City granted $4.6 million to invest in inclusive economic development based specifically on the recommendations that we put forth. So as a planner, we never get those wins. We never get the wins where the plan actually comes to fruition and you get to see some real tangible changes happening in your community. So kudos to Iowa City also for running with that vision. So I'm hopeful that my reelection is going to continue that momentum. I would like to, make sure that our, manufactured housing issues I don't want to say are solved, but we can move the needle on this even further, given my relationships and continued efforts with residents. And yeah, and so, aside from authoritarianism taking over our country, I feel like I've been very upfront about that. And Johnson County, we passed a resolution to defund ICE and restructure DHS and sent that letter to Congress. Actually just came back from DC today, where I was out there talking to our legislators on the Hill. And so I'm very clear-eyed about what's going on in our country and looking to our neighbors to the north and to the east and to the west and everywhere in between as to what's going on. And right now, because we're districted, I have a 2-year term coming up if I am reelected. And unfortunately, I am running against a 20-year incumbent. And I would say he's definitely less progressive than I am, even though he is a Democrat. So that's my in a nutshell. Hello.
Well, thank you very much, V. I do appreciate you sharing all that. We're going to give it to Patrick, our chair of our election endorsement committee. He'll ask you a couple questions. And Patrick, the floor is yours for the next 6 minutes or so. So, Patrick, it's yours.
All right. Thank you, Mitch. And hello, V. Thank you for joining us this evening. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah. Sorry. It broke up for a minute, and I'm trying to figure out if that's on my end. Let me just make sure I close.
Yeah, I think because Mitch, you're not frozen, but V seems to be frozen.
No, I think I think V's back with us.
Okay. Well, V, are you with us? Are you moving? Can you hear? Hello, V?
V, are you with us? I think it's, since you and I are okay, I think it's on V's end.
I think so too.
V should be signing back in. Oh, there
V is here. Just
V signing back. V just signed
sound.
back. V, are you with us?
On a different device.
V, can you
Hello,
hear
V,
us now?
can you hear us?
I can. I mean, it wouldn't be a meeting without technical issues. So hopefully that's it.
I know. We had troubles earlier on.
All right. Yeah. So let's dive right in while everything seems stable. So, so as you know, V, part of the vetting process for this endorsement process is we gave you a questionnaire. You completed it. You submitted it back to us, and we reviewed it. And we have a couple clarifying questions for you. So the first question was question 12, which asked what programs you would support to increase sustainability lifestyle practices in your county. So you answered primarily with respect to our aging population. So now we ask that you answer it in terms of green initiatives.
Yes, that makes sense as well. Yes. I've actually been having a conversation with a colleague about sustainability and resilience and what those terms mean to people. So in terms of, and the question was about programs for sustainability.
Yeah, basically increase sustainability lifestyle practices.
Oh, I see. Lifestyle practices. Wow. Yeah, that's where the rubber really hits the road, doesn't it? So I will say that in terms of sustainability and programs, let's see, at the county, we already do quite a bit with our conservation. I feel like in terms of sustainability, it is really important to connect with nature and make sure that people understand why we're being sustainable so that we can, continue to protect the water that we have. And I guess in terms of programs, so we have instilled roadside testing alongside our county. So we do prairie strips along our county roads. And it was brought to our attention that, we don't know exactly the soil quality that's in there. And so we started a program to test that. And I know that's not necessarily getting to lifestyle type things. Again, it's just kind of a difficult thing to answer. I feel like from a county perspective, and that's the lens that I'm trying to look at this from in terms of programmatic. When you're trying to instill sustainability in my mind, again, like I said, you're trying to make sure people get that connection as to why we're being sustainable. If you're talking about recycling and, those kinds of things, we already manage that already. I guess it would be actually really fantastic if we could do more glass recycling. But again, we run into the, state legislative, the recycling, returns on that. So yeah, what else could there be? I guess in terms of composting, I mean, that feels like very 1990s, but, making people have the connection between, I guess I can only reiterate that sustainability between we are part of something larger. And so how do we make sure that the connections that we're doing get at that? I do know, yeah, I was trying to think of some other programs specifically. That's about as close as I can get, honestly. That's a tough one to think of off the top of my head, and I apologize. I could.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
The next question was question 11 of the questionnaire, which asked what improvements you feel are needed to make public services more easily accessible. So as part of your answer, you mentioned that you're not afraid to try new things. So please elaborate on what some of these new things might be.
Yeah, in terms of public, because that's a question about public infrastructure. Is that right?
Yeah, basically, what improvements you feel are needed to make public services more easily accessible.
Right. Well, I think that, we have to, especially in Johnson County, embrace the fact that we have a fairly growing and large immigrant population. And so I think translation services at every level, whether we're out in the community doing listening posts or people are coming in to get their license plates renewed, we need to have that be sort of the default button. And that's something that I am actively working on. We did have some funding from ARPA to, look at what programs could we purchase. I've also looked at, I mean, it's not exactly sexy, but I've looked at, from an HR perspective, how can we provide additional like salary benefits basically for those folks that are bilingual or multilingual. Because I think that they get pulled on anyway. If they're at work, people just gradually or naturally gravitate towards them in terms of solving those, language barriers. So I think that in terms of accessibility for our programs is a big issue that we could really double down on and make some great strides in. So I would love to continue working on that. And I was the manager for the Johnson County Historic Poor Farm. And one of the things that we talked about there was going beyond accessibility, going beyond ADA. And so I think looking through that lens, when we look at like our rural bus system, like the SEATS program and things like that, we've certainly made some strides. And obviously a lot of that is mandated federally and through the state. But I think I'm always looking at not just how are we complying, but what are some of those next level things? So I think, again, not afraid to fail. What are some of the ideas that are out there? So some of that actually is ADA. Maybe some of our signage, we're getting ready to actually implement some signage at the building. Can that be voice recordings? Can that be, instead of just Braille, but, going beyond that for folks that maybe have some sight challenges? Are there other ways that we can make people feel welcome? Saying hello in many different languages when you get greeted. I mean, it's these small things that I do think make a big difference. So yeah, I think there's lots of things we could be doing.
Okay, thank you. Mitch, how are we doing on time?
Not much time left. So I'm going to give V, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to any final thoughts, and then I'll take 30 seconds to close it up.
Yeah, I definitely would appreciate, obviously, the endorsement. I do feel like our values are aligned. I continue to push for best practices, policies that really honor our shared values in terms of compassion and, making sure that people have what they need to thrive. And that's kind of rare in Iowa, I feel. So I would love to continue working with you all and appreciate your time.